Alright, morning everyone. So today we're going to be doing a throwout bearing install on the on Valerie. I recently got the throwout bearing changed by a shop in Brampton. Unfortunately, I got that changed late April, early May, and it's now September, and it's making screeching noises. Actually, worse noises than the last one that I had in there for about 4 years. So, I'm going to be doing this BattleGarage Ultimate Throwout Bearing. And for comparison, I did buy a 2017 OEM release bearing, and I'm going to show you guys the visual difference here. So this is the OEM part. This is open face. So this is the back that goes like against the transmission, and then this is the front that gets pushed up against the pressure plate fingers. So you can see it's do I have you can see it's open face design. So what happens here is it gets all this dirt in it as the friction material wears off your clutch, and it gets inside and it makes it wear out. And then on top of that, apparently it doesn't really have a plate. You know what? I buy this. I open this. I'll open for you. There isn't really a spot in there for grease to sit properly. Like there's that tiny little groove. I guess that's what their grease holder is. It actually already has some grease in there, and I don't have gloves on yet, so I'm gonna wrap this back up. And if you're wondering why you're looking at a picture of the Numi Racing car, I originally wanted to wear my Numi Racing shirt because Numi's going to the Ozarks at the end of the month for a 25-hour race, and I want to support them, but I don't have that shirt clean, so I'm wearing my Varus Engineering shirt. But I figured I would have this picture from their Lucky Dog race in the background. This is a print that I made. This is for sale. I'll shamelessly plug it. But yeah, this is the background for my showcase. Versus this is the BattleGarage bearing. So from what I can tell, doing some research, this is an OEM Toyota bearing from a different car. I'm not sure exactly what transmission this bearing is used in or what car this bearing is used in, but that's where this comes from. This looks very similar to throwout bearings that I've seen on like beefier cars, like Fox body Mustangs use a throwout bearing that's very, very, very similar in size and appearance to this. Closed face, no way for any crap really to get in there, and it's already pressed onto this carrier, which is nice. So it's going to keep it pushed out a little bit more, and I think their logic behind that is it's supposed to help with the pivot articulation, something, a jigger. I don't know. I'm not that technical on it. But yeah, I'm going to try and do this at home with minimal tools and help. So let's get started because we're burning daylight. Okay, so now I've got the car on the hoist, and what I'm going to do first, because we're going to be unplugging some connectors, is I'm going to disconnect the battery. So I've already loosened my terminals here, and what I'm going to do, because I got 100 bajillion of these things, is I'm just going to put the terminal inside a glove. That way it doesn't touch anything. And then we're going to do the same with the positive. Just take that off. Put it in the glove. All right. Nice. Okay, so now next step is going to be getting these two plugs undone, and then just kind of disconnecting any wires that are looped around on the transmission, like those two plugs down in there, if you can see those right there, and any body grounds as well. And we're also going to be just unbolting the slave cylinder from the bell housing. We're not going to disconnect the hydraulic line, because then you're going to have to bleed your clutch. Now, an important thing is when you have your slave cylinder off, it is like a brake cylinder. You don't want to press the clutch with that disconnected, because it's just going to shoot the rod right out, and then you're going to need a slave cylinder because it's garbage. So yeah, that's what we're going to start on. Okay, so just going to show you guys in here. So right now, that's the slave cylinder taken off. Goes right there. It's 214 bolts, and it just slips out. There's no locking mechanism for the end of the rod. I'm definitely going to put some grease on the end of this once I clean it up when I reinstall, because that's looking pretty nasty. And I'm just going to rest it on the heater hoses here. But before we go any further, I just want to show you. So that in there is the clutch fork. So if I did take the boot off to do this for you guys. I just want to show you the noise. So it's sounding kind of dry in there. I'd really be curious to compare with the throwout bearing that came out back in April or May, how bad it is. This one was in the car for about 4 years and 3 OTA years, so probably like well over 10 events. Not too bad. A little rattly. Let's compare to this new one. Yeah, it doesn't rattle at all. So it is worn for sure. But we'll see. We'll see what this one that comes out looks like. I'm very curious to know. Over here as well, we also have all the wiring unplugged. So that includes the 1 pin on the starter, the 21 pin main harness, a few other little plugs and such. I'm gonna clean that one up. Holy smokes. Yeah, so that's all just floating around there. Like I said, just kind of move the clutch cylinder up over there. Now we're gonna get onto, there's two 14 mils that hold the starter to the bell housing. One of them is down there behind this wire, and then one should be behind this main terminal wire that's bolted to the starter. So we're gonna get those off, and then we're gonna work on the rest of the 14 mil bell housing bolts that I can see from upstairs. Once we're done with that, then we're gonna lift the back of the car up and make sure that the wheels can spin, because that's how we're going to get the 4 bolts off of the differential for the drive shaft to drop. We're going to have to spin it. Okay, so you can see got the starter out, just hanging out over there. I still got it hooked up to the cable, wiring. I've got these top left side bell housing bolts out. One goes right here. You'll see there's like a lump near where the slave cylinder for the clutch mounts, and then there's going to be one down in here. You might have to feel for it. You'll probably cut your hands up trying to reef on it with a ratchet, but such is the way. And then over here, so there's 2 bell housing bolts that go through the starter. I did have to take off this little bracket to get the wiring out of the way that goes on the starter. Now you'll know that these are the starter bolts because they are substantially longer than the top bell housing bolts, so if you get them mixed up, you'll know which ones are the starter bolts. Both starter bolts are the same, top and bottom. There is no perceivable difference in mounting, shoulder, thread, length, what have you. So, okay, with that all done, I think I'm ready to jack up the rear, and then we'll get the car in the air. Yeah. Just make sure that everything is cleared off, tied up good. If you have low height, make sure that you close up the hood before you start. Yeah, onto the underside. Okay, so this is my sketchy idea. As you can see, I have the front wheels chalked. The back is up on jack stands, which I did by lowering the hoist down with this floor jack supporting the diff, and then I raised it until I could clear for the jack stands to go on the pinch, and then I just raised it up off the jack. So that's what we got going on right now. I know this looks a little bit weird, and that's because it is. So anyway, now we can go underneath and look at this lovely mess. So transmission cover got to come off, engine cover needs to come off, front pipe will have to come off, and then the drive shaft also needs to come off. So I'm going to WD-40 all these bolts, take off the shields, and then we can work on getting the transmission unbolted from the engine and onto this table. There is a way I'm going to try and cheat this out without taking the shifter off from inside the car, and it pretty much involves taking the bushes out for the shifter linkages from the bottom side. I've seen some people get pretty frustrated doing this, so we're going to see how that goes. But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to soak all the bolts in PB Blaster, get them loosened up. Hopefully we don't break any. Alright, so I finally got the front pipe off. Just wanted to show you guys this fun surprise I found as to why this nut was so hard to take off. It's bloody well got no threads. Thing was probably cross-threaded put on, and I'm amazed that I even got it off. So that's going to be fun to fix. Anyway, on to the drive shaft now. By the way, all the exhaust bolts were 14s, including the spring bolts, which proceeded to fly across my garage. So what I'm going to do now is these 2 carrier bushing support bracket bolts are coming out.
And then these four, I don't know if you would call that flex plate, but you know, differential mounting bolts for the tail end of the drive shaft there. I'm probably, let me double check if I have enough trans fluid, because I'm probably going to drain the transmission before I do this. And I do. So we're going to go ahead and drain the transmission. Now, in order to do that, there's two plugs. There's the fill plug here and the drain plug down here. Always crack your fill plug first, because if you can't, then guess what? You now have a transmission you can't fill. So yeah, we're gonna crack that one up there first, this one second, let it drain out. And then we're gonna proceed to get at the other bolts for the bell housing here. It should all be 14s once we're done taking the drive shaft out. And then it'll be time to drop the transmission. Okay, so I've got all the bolts loose for this, just about to take it off the differential, but wanted to point this out. Before you take it off, make sure you put a witness mark on the yoke and the mounting face for the differential, just so they go back together the same way, because the propeller is balanced, and even though like it probably doesn't matter, if I'm being honest, you just when it comes to this kind of crap, you really don't want drive shaft or drive line vibrations, so better to just put it back the way it came off if you're not having a problem. So yeah, transmission's drained, fluid came out blue as the sky, so that's nice. Yeah, so these bolts are loose. Gonna slip all this off, and yeah, hope that it doesn't make a mess. I'm gonna put a towel down on the ground, I think. Okay, so now that the drive shaft's off the car, if I'm not mistaken, it should be those two bushings there that we need to disconnect in order to completely remove any scenario of the transmission being stuck somewhere. Yeah, and then from there, you know, you just take the carrier for the rear mount off, the rest of the bell housing bolts, and some way to support the engine while you're doing that. So let's get started on that. Okay, so you can see now, basically what I took out, they're these little pins. They go on either side of the shifter main unit here. And in there where my finger's pointing, if you can see that, they just slide out on either side after you rotate them up with like a screwdriver. And all I did to help get those out, because the tunnel tapers up there, just undo the 4 carrier bolts, they're 14s, and you just kind of have enough room to shift it around, and then you can just push the shifter up like that, and now that's not a problem anymore. So now we're going to support the engine somehow and take out those last bell housing bolts, and then we're going to drop the transmission. This is exciting. All right, transmission is out. Here is the release bearing, and if I play around with it like this, squeaky. Yeah. The clutch itself doesn't look too bad. This is a 4-year-old Exceedi Stage 1. The wear on the fingers does not look too bad. I have seen a lot worse online. You can feel it, but it's not like ridges, like crazy freaking ridges like what I've seen online. And I mean, all the fingers are still on the same plane. It's not like uneven wear. Now, as for the input snout, I don't think it's damaged so bad that I can't reuse it. It's hard to get you guys a good angle, but to me at least, it looks okay. Let's see if I can push it a little more here. Not too bad. Not too bad, I would say. So that's nice. No surprise $800 part needed. But if you've ever wondered what it looks like in here, this is the thing. This is a pretty weak design, if I'm being honest. This doesn't look too far off from like one of the idler pulleys in the serpentine belt system. So I think we're doing this transmission a service, putting in the BattleGarage one. Now, the way I did this is super jank. Pretty much I had my floor jack resting on this hydraulic table, and then what I did is I lowered the hoist down, and I have the brick and wood here as my stand to hold the engine from tipping, and then I pretty much just had to back it off with a pry bar. Now, is that one of the... I don't know. Maybe that's a third dowel pin, but I don't think so. I think, oh, yeah, there is supposed to be a something in there, I think. But it looks like it's, I don't know, sheared off. There's a cute little spider inside that hole. I don't know if you can see that. But, yeah, I'm calling it a day. We'll get to the, installation tomorrow. Right now, I'm making dinner. Okay, so you have to forgive me, I'm doing this on my phone. So here's the old throwout bearing. Not too bad actually, but you know, you can hear it hissing a little. Does have a little bit of play. This is what the snout looks like. There is unfortunately a little bit of a ridge here. Not too much on the bottom, but not bad enough where I think I want to replace the snout. The pivot is actually what was making a lot of the squeaking noise. So once you take these two retention clips off from either side of the fork, this will just slide right off the snout. All right. And then from there, to get the fork to release from the pivot ball, there's a third spring on the back side of the fork here. And all I'm gonna do is just come in here with some needle nose pliers and pull it out of those retaining holes. And then it should just pull right off like that. And then Bob's your uncle, right? So yeah, you can see all the crap that's built up on that pivot ball. Oof, pretty yucky. Pretty gross. All that grease is just completely dried up. Yeah, there's pretty much nothing left in there either. So we're gonna grease all these pivot points. We're gonna grease up the snout. Once we give it a good wipe and clean, we're gonna grease in here because this goes into the pilot bearing. And then on the new bearing, we're going to be greasing a few key areas. So big spot where you want to put some grease is inside here, because this is what's going to be moving and contacting the snout. We're also going to put some grease on both these ears where the retention clips sit, and we're going to put a little bit of grease on the front face as well, just so every contact point has lubrication. We don't want it to be dry like this and have the same situation where now it's making a crap ton of noise. And for perspective, this is the one that they took out after 4 years. And then this is the one that lasted like 5 months. So not nearly as bad, but definitely starting to wear out. You can see this old one, it's actually offset as if a bearing fell out or is crushed inside of here. But yeah. Interestingly though, this is the one that came with the Exidi clutch kit, and then this is the one that they ordered from Toyota, I guess. The 17 plus revision. Now, this is supposed to be a revised model as well, but I noticed that the contact face has the same double lip as this one, whereas the one that they put in doesn't. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to do some research whether this is the old style that they just shoved in there or what, because yeah, that might have something to do with why it failed so prematurely. Okay, so got the new release bearing on. As you can see, we've greased all the pivot points, put some grease inside of there, put a thin layer on the contact surface. All the articulation points where these clips rub against the fork, it's good to put grease there because as you can see, it does start to bite. One's gonna go right side up, the other one's gonna go upside down. This is just how they have it in the picture, and then they just sit in those little ridges on the side. Then there's this spring clip in the back, and pretty much that is the thing that keeps it secured to the pivot ball, which we've greased. I've also gone ahead and put some grease on the snout and the splines and where the pilot bearing's gonna sit. The key here, I guess you could call it, is put enough, but don't put so much that it's gonna sling all over the frickin' clutch assembly. I'm just gonna put a smidge more in the reservoir for the carrier, just to fill that up nicely. If there's excess or you feel like there's excess, make sure you wipe it up. I'm gonna wipe that on here. Get that nice and lubed up. Hopefully no more noise. Okay. And then this should just stick right on. I'm gonna show you guys that. Should make a click. So we're gonna stick the fork up through there. Put the release bearing onto the snout. And then this should just click on with a little bit of force. You'll know it's on because it won't slip off like it just did like that. But I might have to spread it from the back here or take it off and clip it back in because it doesn't seem to snap like I thought it did. But that's pretty much what you're gonna do. Okay, so I was a little mistaken. Pretty much you wanna have that off and then it'll snap onto the pivot ball. And then you're just gonna, from the back side here, put these ears for the retention clip into those little holes on both sides of the fork. Okay, so that took a little bit of MacGyvering, but as you can see, it's in both sides. And if we articulate it, oh yeah. Quiet as a church mouse, baby. That's nice. That's really nice. So we're just gonna wipe off this excess here so it doesn't fling around when everything's spinning and what have you. But yeah, guys, that's the install. So now you just got to do everything in reverse and go for a test drive. Okay, so I just finished repairing those threads, cleaned up the mating surfaces on the gasket and stuff. What I'm gonna do now is just gonna put a little dollop of gray anti-seize on these dowel pins so that it doesn't get stuck coming out again. I'm also gonna put a little bit on these bottom studs. Just massage that on there. Because on the actual threaded part, we are going to put some blue Loctite. Because seeing as this car sees frequent track use, I think it's in our best interest to make sure that these bolts and nuts are secured against vibrations when you're going over the curbing. If you can tip the back up a little, back this, the transition, yeah. I'm just gonna kind of wiggle it.
Okay, so we are on day 3. Transmission I got in last night around 6 o'clock. I just, you know, this is a lot of work. If I'm being completely honest, this is a lot of work. So now on my to-do list for today is stick as many bolts in as I can down here. I'm gonna leave this. Oh, yeah, no, I'm gonna have to leave the starter because I put that up top. Then once I've got these tightened up, snug, then I'm gonna get onto the drive shaft reinstallation. Then from there we can fill the transmission. To my knowledge, these 4 bolts that go in at the back are 55 foot-pounds. These ones up here for the bell housing are all 37 or 39 foot-pounds. The mount, I think, is the same, but I'm gonna have to double check. It also helps if you can access the service manual online while you're doing this, and it should have all the specs. Just be sure you're reading the right one because they list all of them, like Newton meters, foot-pound, like a whole bunch of different like measurement types. So just be careful, because I have over-torqued bolts by accidentally reading the Newton meters as the foot-pounds. Okay, so with some help from my mom, I got the drive shaft installed. Yes, I did install the center support bearing upside down. Ask me how I found out. Little Loctite on all the driveline bolts as per suggestion by Dan the Man and Cornelius, just to negate any vibrations. Right now I'm torquing the yoke to the drive shaft, the differential. It's 55 foot-pounds. So I'm just going around, snugging everything up, and then we're going to click it all off. It does help if you take the transmission out of gear, if you had it in gear, to align the splines when you were putting the transmission back onto the engine. Reason that you would have done that is to check and see if the splines were engaged in the motor or not, to figure out if that's what's impeding you from getting into the motor. Very helpful tip.
Make sure that you realign your paint mark as well. Don't forget that. Important aspect of this part of the job. And once we're done here, we're going to put transmission oil back into the transmission. And then I think we can put the exhaust on. And then we can go back up top. I ended up going and getting the starter put in from down here, just so I could torque everything down here before I go up there. Oh, that's tight. Okay. Okay. Ah, there we go. Okay, so yeah, this is like 56 foot-pounds. So what I did, I just put this frickin' thing through the yokes again because I couldn't hang on to the nut. These two for the center support bearing are 38 foot-pounds. So we're gonna dial it back down to 38. And then, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, 48 for the 4 rear support bolts for the transmission. I'm gonna do it in a crisscross pattern. Bell housing bolts are all 36 foot-pounds. Put some anti-seize on the exhaust studs. Now I'm gonna put the Permatex on there, and then I'm gonna just kind of have it there loose while I'm filling up the transmission with fluid, which is very crucial. Do not drive the car without transmission fluid. This reminds me of when I did my oil pan gasket. Also, don't worry, I am chasing the threads on this stud, so we're not just gonna ram a nut on there like whoever the hell did that last time. All right, so it's Tuesday. This is day 4 of the throwout bearing install. I got everything put on now. Pretty much the problem I had was one of the front pipe to over pipe bolts was done, so I had to get a new one today. I finished up, you know, cleaning everything up under there, putting everything back on, all the trays and stuff. I've plugged in all the connections again, and I have the slave cylinder in place. I'm going to torque the bolts right now. There is a spec for it. It's 27 foot-pounds for those 2 bolts. So we're going to come over here, set up the torque wrench. 27. And then we're just gonna get this heater hose coerced. And then we're gonna set you guys down. Perfect. Okay, so that's that. Now, in terms of the dust boot for the fork, I can't seem to get it to sit properly anymore. So I'm hoping maybe when I'm articulating the clutch, it'll push the fork back enough that I can slip it on, because right now it is under so much pressure from the pressure plate, I can't force it back with everything assembled. So maybe you guys will have better luck, but I can't get it seated as it sits right now. But what I'm gonna do right now for you guys is, without starting the car, I'm gonna press the clutch. Okay, so we're in neutral. Make sure we got all the gears. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and reverse. Beautiful. Okay, all gears engaged. Clutch does not fall down to the ground and get stuck there. Yeah, looks like everything's functioning. So now the only thing left to do is hook up the battery, and we're gonna do something a little funky because the battery's been unplugged now for 4 days. So the throttle body might have to do a quick little run through. So you're gonna turn the key to the on position and don't crank the car yet. Just let it sit and do its thing for like 5 seconds. Shut her down. Let it sit for like maybe another, I don't know, if you want to be really safe, a minute. And then we're gonna crank it up. All right, guys, so key on. Key off. you will have to reset the clock. I just saw it. It's reading the typical 105, so it counts from 1 the minute you connect the battery. Okay. All right. Okay, no explosions. Oh. Oh, thank God. All right. Reset the clock. Oh my God, you don't know how relieved I am. I was so worried. Because you gotta understand, this is like, I've never done anything like this before. I've never dropped a transmission before like this. Never done my own clutch. This is amazing. All right, so it is the day after the car has been back on the road. Initial impressions, while the transmission mount insert that I have definitely doesn't completely get rid of the noise, there is no more chatter or hang up through the clutch engagement. It's very smooth, like it's extremely smooth. It really kind of reminds me of my Corolla now with how the clutch is. Now, I don't know, maybe it's just because I haven't driven the car in 4 days. The clutch bite does seem to be very high, so maybe I'll adjust that a little bit. But yeah, no more screeching, no more like weird hang up or clutch. Like the clutch effort is even less now. I don't know if that's because now the fulcrum points changed because of the size of the bearing carrier. But yeah, like just really easy clutch now. Like effortless clutch. No real problems shifting. I did put a little bit of Lucas in with the lightweight shockproof redline oil. I don't know how much of a difference that's going to make because it's the off season and I'm not tracking it. But yeah, no, nothing to say. The car functions amazing. I think if I were to do anything different, I probably would change the snout, but not for the Teflon coated one that BGRS sells, because that's really expensive. And I think if you're greasing like a new OEM snout and you're putting this bushing, or if you're putting this bearing on, I really don't think you're going to have that premature wear problem again. And the OEM part is like $80. I thought it was a lot more expensive. The only trouble is you will have to seal around the seam of it, because that is holding the transmission oil from getting into the bell housing. I will include a little clip that I have of the old throwout bearing idle noise versus this new one. The big difference is going to be like all the chattering and stuff when you're going through the range of the clutch versus this one, and a little bit more of the harmonics when you got the clutch out in idle, because it shuts up when you put the clutch all the way in. Like, it doesn't make noise either way. Thankfully, it never got to the point where it was screeching when I was pushing the clutch too. That would have been a disaster.
then I think the snout would have been a mandatory thing. But yeah, even last night I was out with my neighbor Matt. We were doing some like moderate RPM shifts, like around 5,000 shift, and yeah, smooth, just smooth. I would recommend this to anybody that's doing a clutch job. Like this is amazing. This is really nice. Again, it was extremely difficult, as this was my very first time taking a transmission out of a car like this. Even more stressful, the fact that I didn't have the right like lifts or anything to support the engine or whatnot. But no, now that it's done, this is the only bearing I want in the car ever if I have to change it again. Especially if you're tracking. Like, this is like very much something I think will be beneficial for being on the track next year. Yeah. Oh, I wish I didn't have to do it all again to do the timing cover reseal, but you know, it's leaking and I want it to stop leaking. So you know, sometimes you just, the struggle never ends, right? This is part of owning the car and dailying your track vehicle, right? So yeah, Thanksgiving weekend's coming up. I'm gonna try and get on welding in some sheet metal for Mr. Postman. I do have to clean up the inner rocker a little before I do that, though. I finally have all the stuff to do it. I had to make another run and get some more materials. But yeah, I'm just excited that I got the car back finally. Nice. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was a little kind of wishy-washy at times when I was having trouble or struggling, but yeah, I hope this helps anybody that's, you know, doing this for their very first time, kind of get a scope of what needs to be done and how much work is involved in this whole process. So yeah, stay tuned for the engine reseal video. Stay tuned for another update on the Mr. Postman rust situation. And yeah, keep on trucking.